Now on BBC One, Politics North with Tim Iredale.
Water bosses have come under fire over bills, bonuses and the state of our rivers and seas. To address some of those questions, we're joined by the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water. You're watching Politics North for Yorkshire and Lincolnshire coming up in the next half hour. With water bills set to rise, we analyse how our money is spent. Will it be more investment to prevent sewage spills or a financial bonus for shareholders?
Underneath here we can see it's just full of wipes, toilet roll, sanitary products, all of those things.
We pay our bills in and 1/3 of it goes straight out the other end as either dividends or interest and debt servicing. It's like a financial diarrhea through the company.
Amid calls to repay her £370,000 bonus, the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water tells Politics North she won't pay the money back. So you will not repay that bonus?
I won't.
Plus, we'll be looking back on an eventful political year. Today, we're joined by Shadow Environment Minister and Conservative MP for Keighley and Ilkley, Robbie Moore, Labour MP for Scarborough and Whitby, Alison Hume, and Becky Malby from the Ilkley Clean Rivers Group. We've talked a lot on this programme about the need for water companies to clean up their act. Many bosses say they're spending record amounts on infrastructure designed to prevent sewage spills. But research by Politics North reveals 1/3 of Yorkshire Water's customer bills goes on repaying debts and providing dividends. With ongoing concern over water quality in our rivers and seas, campaign groups have called on the current Chief Executive to repay her £370,000 bonus. David Rhodes has the full story.
It is a bathing spot on the River Wharfe where it's advised you don't enter the water. Pollution here poses a risk to human health.
This is a CSO, combined sewage outflow, so it mixes rainwater together and sewage together. So down here, underneath here, we can see it's just full of wipes, toilet roll, sanitary products, all of those things.
87% of the rivers across Yorkshire currently fail to achieve a good rating for ecological standards.
Well, it makes me feel disgusted. I kind of feel like I'm living in a third world country. When I first started getting involved in this campaign, I couldn't really believe that in a country like ours we're actually just dumping sewage into the river.
Yorkshire Water says it's spending £800 million alone this year on improving the water network. £15 million has gone on building new sewers like this one near Ilkley. To fund more improvements, Yorkshire Water wants to raise £8 billion. Part of that will come from raising customer bills potentially by 25% over the next 5 years, taking the average bill above £500 a year.
We're in a cost of living crisis, and these increases in these bills, I think if you look at inflation, it's going to be a lot more than 25% over the next 5 years. So if you're somebody who's already struggling and you're just about managing to keep up with all your bills, I think people are very worried about it.
But Yorkshire Water is not short of money. Our analysis has found that since 2017, the company has paid out over £500 million in dividends from its profits, though the firm says this money has been used to repay loans and debts. However, its borrowings have not fallen, rising every year since 2017, and its net debts currently stand at £6.2 billion. And a new analysis suggests £1 in every £3 or a third of the bill a typical Yorkshire Water customer pays is now being used to repay debts and pay dividends.
We've just done the calculation for all the companies and for Yorkshire Water, and literally 33%, 1/3 of all bills we pay are sucked out of the company by the shareholders and the creditors. It goes out as either dividends or interest and debt servicing. And so that doesn't deliver any service at all. It's like a financial diarrhea through the company. We pay our bills in, and 1/3 of it goes straight out the other end.
In the world of corporate finance, the word debt isn't a bad word. It allows a company to invest in new products or improve its current services. But in Yorkshire Water's case, the company has been taking on more debt, and on two key metrics, the company's performance hasn't been improving. Since 2020, Yorkshire Water has spilled sewage into the region's rivers for 1.5 million hours. In 2023, there were over 77,000 of these so-called spill events, the highest number in 4 years. Meanwhile, the company received over 5,000 written complaints from its customers last year, the highest number since 2019.
My job is to manage Yorkshire Water, to see us delivering for the people of Yorkshire, and that's what I'm focused on.
After taking over in 2022, the current Chief Executive, Nicola Shaw, declined to take her first bonus, citing public anger over sewage spills. But in her second year, when the number of recorded sewage spills has increased, Nicola Shaw received a salary and pension package worth £657,000 and a performance bonus worth £371,000. The company told us bonuses are set by an independent remuneration committee and that this year bonuses for executive directors were reduced by around 1/3 to take into account the company's environmental performance not being where we want it to be.
So the River Calder is beautiful, but it's also one of the most polluted rivers in the country.
People want Yorkshire Water to succeed in reducing sewage spills, but there is anger about executive pay and calls for Nicola Shaw to repay her bonus.
We do want the rivers cleaning, and we know the money needs to come from somewhere. So I think people are understanding that maybe bills need to go up a little bit, but should that then still be paying for fines and dividends and bonuses? Nicola Shaw, the CEO of Yorkshire Water, took home £370,000 as a bonus. In what other industry do you get to take home a bonus at the same time as running a failing business?
It's expected next Thursday Ofwat will make its final decision on whether water bills in Yorkshire will rise by 25%. We know Yorkshire Water is going to receive more money from its customers in the years to come. But how is that money going to be spent, and who is going to benefit from it?
That was David Rhodes reporting there. Well, earlier I spoke to the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water and asked her whether customers would be shocked that £1 in every 3 is spent servicing debts and dividends.
So I hope not. What we're doing is investing and paying for that investment over a long time. Like if you buy a house, you don't pay for it on the first day, you probably have a mortgage and you pay for it over a long time. So the reason that we have the investment or the debt is in order that we don't pay today, but we pay over the life of the asset. And these assets will last for probably 100 years. I totally accept that it's a very big amount of money. We're going to be spending 8.2 billion, I hope, over the next 5 years because we're not in a good place. And as your report showed, we need to improve.
How's that going to be split? 8 billion. Who pays for that? Is it customers or shareholders?
So it is customers who pay for the work that is done, and they pay over a long time. In my case, my shareholders are also putting in investment into Yorkshire Water. They put 500 million in over the last 2 years.
Should the shareholders not be paying more?
The shareholders are contributing. They've paid 500 million in the last 3 years, and they put another 500 million about in before March 2027. So they're also contributing.
You declined your annual bonus last year, but this year you've decided to accept a bonus of £370,000. Why have you decided to accept that bonus?
So the shareholders set some very tough obligations for me in the round, together with the full team at Yorkshire Water. They recognise that this is a business that needs to turn around, and they recognise it's going to take us a while. So they set some high standards in relation to things like reducing leakage, improving employee safety, improving employee engagement, improving customer satisfaction, and things like that.
Well, customer satisfaction, the number of complaints has actually risen, hasn't it? You can't say your customers are satisfied because they're not.
No, I agree. And what I'm saying is that they set those high standards, and we met a number of them, but not all of them. And then they decided to reduce it still further because they said, we don't think overall you're in the right place. Good progress, but not enough. And so they did reduce what they paid me.
campaigners say you should repay that £370,000 bonus. Will you be repaying it?
My shareholders will be paying it.
Sorry, you're getting a 370
from the shareholders and not from customers.
It's ultimately customers that pay the bills, though.
But it's important that they understand that it isn't coming from what they have paid, it's from the profit that the shareholders could have taken otherwise.
So you will not repay that bonus?
I won't.
Some say you're being rewarded for failure. Sewage spills went up last year on the year before. That's a failure of you and your company, isn't it?
Well, I think you need to set it in the context of this is a business that has something like 55,000 kilometres of sewers across Yorkshire. And we had some of the most extreme weather events between September last year and March this year, in which we hadn't seen that amount of rain going on for that long before.
The wrong kind of rain?
No, just a lot of it. And so I recognise that's not where we want to be. And the investment we want to make in the next 5 years is a large contribution. £1.4 billion of that will be going in directly to reducing discharges from our combined sewer overflows.
So the Labour government want to take away your bonus in some circumstances. What would you say to them?
That's what they want to do. I'll work under whatever circumstances I have. What I'm trying to do, as I've said, is focus on the future and make sure that we deliver for Yorkshire.
And water privatisation, do you believe that's still a successful model? What would you say to those who say the industry should be nationalised?
So the good thing about it is that that debt is being paid for and supported by customers over the long term. It's not on the government balance sheet, and the government balance sheet wouldn't be able to support it at the moment. We're doing everything we can to really focus on investment. So as you saw, we've been investing at Ilkley, but we're also investing in Scarborough, in Whitby, in the South
Well, the water
Yorkshire,
quality in those places, in places like Scarborough South Bay, is terrible. Would you swim in Scarborough South Bay?
I would, yes.
Really?
Certainly when it hasn't been raining, which is what we've been saying all along. That's why we're transparent about where we are using our storm overflows. The information is available. You can see it on our website.
But it's not good enough, is it? There needs to be massive improvements.
Absolutely, and indeed we've made investment at Scarborough South Bay this year at Wheatcroft, at one of our storm overflows just south of the bay.
You really would swim in sewage?
I would swim in the sea when it's clean.
That was Nicola Shaw, the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water, speaking earlier. Becky Malby, I'll come to you first. Can I just get your reaction, first of all, to Nicola Shaw saying that she will not be repaying her bonus?
Well, Tim, thank you for inviting us onto the programme. It's really, really hard to get any public voice in any of this, actually. We somehow seem to be left out of the equation. We pay for all of this and we get nothing in return. So in terms of Nicola Shaw's bonus, in some ways, it's a bit of a distraction. The dividends are a real problem. Absolutely, the payment of debt is a real problem. So over the years, since privatisation, water companies in this country have scaled up their debt and their dividend payments to over £100 billion. And if you look at that, the only reason they could do that, Tim, was because they reported they were maintaining and supporting the infrastructure of the sewage system. In Ilkley, we found not only was raw sewage being dumped in the river a third of the year, but along our footpaths, manholes were popping, toilet paper, rats, kids walking through it to school. All of that, in our view, is illegal activity. And every water company is now under criminal investigation by the Environment Agency and Ofwat. We should not be paying our bill rises, Tim, to anybody whilst all of that criminal activity is going on, whilst Yorkshire Water had reported all of those years that it was compliant when it wasn't.
Let me bring in Robbie Moore. Do you think the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water deserves a bonus this year?
Absolutely not. I mean, when we were in government, we made it very clear that there should be no water company bosses' bonuses paid if a water company is not performing as their customers would be expected to do so. And I'm pleased that the new government are bringing that through the special water amendments.
Why didn't that happen on your watch?
Well, we made an announcement when we were in government, and it involved legislation to bring that into place, and then there was a general election. The government are now bringing that through, which is good. But I do agree with Becky, actually, in that this is a little bit of a distraction. I totally think that Nicola Shaw should not accept that. I didn't accept the points that she was making in her interview around who was paying it, whether it was shareholders or the customer. But actually, the point here is around dividends. Again, when we were in government, we made sure that dividends that should only be paid out linked to environmental performance. And if water companies are not performing, and they have been found not to be performing by the regulator, the Environment Agency or Ofwat, then those dividends should not be paid out to shareholders, because what is important is every water company should be monitored against outcomes.
Some would say we wouldn't be in this situation had the government you were part of as a minister done more to force water companies to clean up their act.
Well, let's just look at the situation that we were in. There was no monitoring effectively done of storm overflows. Back in 2010, under the last Labour administration, only 7% of storm overflows were monitored. We're now at 100%. So we now know exactly where the challenges are faced so that water companies can be held to be account, or should be able to be, by those regulators, so that financial resource can be allocated and so that improvements can be made. But I agree, there is much more to be done. We, through the Plan for Water, made it allocated provision for more enforcement, stronger regulation and more investment to be going in.
Let me bring in Alison Hume, because it's her government now that's trying to put the house in order, and you cover a big coastal constituency. There's a lot riding on this for you. I'll ask you the same question I asked the Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water. When is it going to be safe for us to swim in Scarborough's South Bay without worrying about sewage and goodness knows what else popping up in the water?
Well, indeed. I mean, if you go to South Bay, you'll see notices advising you not to bathe in the water. So I'd invite Nicola to come and join me for the swim on Boxing Day. I'll lend her a hat and goggles if she wants to go in.
But do you think they will put their house in order, or is this a kind of almost a false threat, this talk of sending water bosses to jail in certain circumstances?
Absolutely not. They're going to have to put their house in order. And excuse me, but, you can blame the previous Labour government, but you were in power for 14 years and you were also the Minister for Water, and you stood back and let water companies like Yorkshire Water pollute our rivers and seas with sewage. We have taken action. It's a new culture under Labour. Within days of taking office, we've secured an agreement to make sure that money has to be spent on infrastructure rather than bosses' bonuses and dividends. Within 70 days, we brought in a bill to ensure that when bosses do pollute, their companies do pollute, they can't get bonuses, they can't take dividends, and going forward we're going to have a commission to really look at the whole way the industry works in the future. Very important. We are acting where you failed to act.
Look, we can enter into blame games, but I think what's important here is to actually look at what the Labour Party are offering through the Special Water Measures Bill. A lot of campaigners do not think it is going far enough. A lot of the investors are frustrated as well. So it's just a tick box exercise, unfortunately. It's not necessarily achieving the environmental outcomes we wanted to expect. And I just want to pick up on...
Hardly a tick box exercise. These are genuine and long-standing things that we are putting right.
The narrative that was portrayed... The narrative that was portrayed by the Labour government before the general election was that every water company boss would end up in jail, potentially, if their water company was polluting. It will not happen, because this is derived around the way in which investigations are being held, and if a water company boss decides to withhold information, if a regulator expects them to deliver that. It just simply will not deliver.
Bring in Becky Malby. Do you have faith in Labour government's proposals to clean up the water industry?
They just don't go far enough, so it feels like a really short-term measure that could deliver us a real problem. So when we were in the House a few weeks ago lobbying MPs, at the same time GIAA, which is a Macquarie-type organisation, was busy courting the Labour Party for investments. We're really, really worried at hedge fund takeover of the water companies. We think you have to put them in special administration, look at their finances and determine the ownership model. The Water Commission has ruled out anything but tweaking the privatised model. Privatised model has delivered us pollution for profit.
We asked a few people whether they would support the renationalisation of the water industry. This is what they said.
I think there's a case for it putting back in public hands, provided we've got proper management again. And we tend to blame the people at the very top, but I'm sure management have got a lot to answer for as well.
Is it time to take Yorkshire Water back into public hands?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Why?
Because there's so much contamination. It tastes disgusting.
The managers and things like that, they're all complacent in what they do, and they're not looking after the public's water.
I know this is unlikely to happen, Alison Hume, but the Labour Party makes a big song and dance about bringing the railways back under public control. Why can't the same happen with the water industry?
The Labour government, we've got no plans to nationalise the water industry because it will cost billions of pounds and take years to unpick the current ownership model. Our priority is infrastructure and ending sewage pollution.
I mean, we are going to give you the evidence that's wrong. So you keep citing, DEFRA keeps citing this sort of £90 billion cost, where Moody's has replaced that with a cost of 14 billion. It's significantly less. And if you look at just Thames Water, if you keep it in privatised, the privatised model with those hedge funds invested, it's going to cost the public £800 million more in bills than if it was nationalised. Now, I am not necessarily saying nationalisation is the only answer. You could look at mutualisation, but you must have it on the table, Alison, because those figures you're relying on are wrong and have been discredited because they were provided to you by the water companies themselves many years ago.
Was water privatisation one privatisation too many?
Look, I would say privatisation has delivered about £215 billion of private money coming in to deal with providing services but also infrastructure improvements over that period of time. But it only works, and as we have seen, if you have strong regulation and strong enforcement
then why didn't you do that when you were in
alongside
government?
that. So that relies on the Drinking Water Inspectorate, the Environment Agency and Ofwat, which is why we gave both the EA and Ofwat more powers, and we would expect them to utilise those powers that have been awarded to them.
Well, look, this is our last programme of the year. Becky, I have a feeling we might be talking about this in 2025, so come back and see us again.
We will. Please, we'd absolutely love to. Thank you.
Now, will the new year bring more cheery news for Chancellor and Leeds MP Rachel Reeves, or will it be more economic flatlining? Now, Gemma's been out having a Christmas tipple in Meanwood. I'm told it's an up-and-coming hotspot for a night out in Leeds, it says here.
Small businesses and bars can really give a high street like this one in Meanwood some character. But after the COVID pandemic, the cost of living crisis and a spike in utility bills, they're facing some real financial challenges. Let's go and have a chat to some of the regulars in this bar here in Meanwood. Brian, you're here a lot. What sort of difference does a place like this make?
A great difference to the local community. It improves the spirit of the community. It's very beneficial. It's good for the local economy, and it just makes Meanwood a much nicer neighbourhood to live in.
But bars and the hospitality sector are facing some significant pressures. James, you run this cocktail bar. Just talk me through your situation.
Well, it's been a difficult 5 years for everyone in hospitality. Rising costs on everything from raw materials, beer, wine, gas, everything, you name it, utilities, it's gone up. So
you're a Labour voter. What were you hoping that the Chancellor would do in her first budget?
Short term, maybe a cut in VAT in hospitality and leisure just to sort of boost the sector.
I spoke to the Chancellor the last time she was in Leeds, and she said she's not immune to the challenges small businesses and the hospitality sector face. Have a listen to what she told me.
The smaller businesses will benefit from that employment allowance, which could reduce the national insurance bill. And of course, for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses, we have been able to extend business rates relief and then make those permanent changes. So I would urge businesses to look at the detail.
What did you make of that then?
Not much, if I'm honest. I wouldn't take any real positive hope from those words.
So what are your fears for the sector?
Just more closures. Less bars on the high street, less things for people to see and do in the local area. So, yeah, it's just a difficult time.
Thank you very much. There you have it, Tim. Hospitality businesses right across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire will be hoping for a bumper Christmas period to get them through what could be an uncertain 2025. Now, hurry up. See you around, I think. Cheers.
It's a bit early for me, Gemma. I might join you for a shandy a little bit later on. As it's our last programme of the year, we thought we'd take a look back at some of the political moments of 2024. And you remember, if we wind back the clock 12 months, there was this big debate over when is the election date going to be. When do you think the next election is going to be?
My guess is either the first week in May or the first week in October.
So I'm thinking the autumn, October, November, December, January.
And we will have a general election on the 4th of July.
I am standing against Rishi Sunak, very Sunak, in the general election.
Here we go, number 10. The race for number 10. See? They've got a vicious dog. I'm not staying around.
And as Big Ben strikes 10, the exit poll is predicting a Labour landslide.
Another wave of violence hits towns and cities across the UK.
Anyone who gets involved in criminal disorder, violent thuggery on our streets will have to pay the price.
No way! Tax the rich and make them pay!
I shall just have to keep it on and then probably be in debt to the gas or electric.
Could you heat a home, buy food and live on £220 a week?
We did an audit of the books. I could pretend to you I've got a magic wand and can find £22 billion, but I haven't. And I think people want a bit of sort of levelling and raw honesty.
We have a family farm of our own, and it's just ridiculous what's going on with the government and no one's listening.
This policy is cruel, it is unfair, and it is going to destroy farming as we know it.
The former Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, has died.
I think he'll be remembered as a strong character who did good for the city, and be remembered fondly.
He used to come in as a regular, and we used to carry his chips out to him. He'd stand here and eat some chips while he was waiting, but not tell his wife, and have a laugh and a joke about it.
Well, it's from Hull, and we're just normal, aren't we? He just, didn't take no nonsense, did he?
To the country, I would like to say first and foremost, I am sorry.
Vinface is still standing. The real victory is mine.
Just some of the memories from 2024. What a year. Go on, let me just get you both to sum up. What are your takeaways from this year? Robbie Moore.
Well, look, I'm deeply worried about, generally, as we go into the winter period. There's a lot of concern out there on the back of the budget. I think that's what's on everyone's minds. As Shadow Farming Minister, I was down in the protest earlier this week in Whitehall, with the farmers. And, there's a lot of concern out there. Our pensioners are deeply concerned. Small businesses are concerned. So really, looking forward, that is where my priority is, and that's where my concern is going forward into the new year.
Do you feel, Alison Hume, at the end of the year, obviously you had that big election win back in the summer, but a lot of people seem to have lost faith with the Labour Party. Does that frustrate you?
People are impatient. People voted for change, and we're delivering change. We are going to deliver an improved NHS, cutting down waiting lists, more money into schools, more teachers, more bobbies on the beat, bringing in clean energy. We have ambitions for this country. We have stopped the rot, and we're building back.
We shall see. Thank you both for your thoughts today. The good news is Politics North will still be here in January, but that is it for today. A very happy Christmas from our team here on Politics North, and we will see you again in 2025. Ta-ta.